Welcome, I'm Siona from the Hooked on Crochet Club, and I am going to be showing you my bundle for washcloths, which is focusing on, it's my puff and popcorn. So all of these that I'm going to design, so over the next 5 weeks there'll be one released each week, will have a washcloth that contains either the puff stitch or a popcorn stitch, and there might be some variations on the popcorn as well. So we're going to have some fun. So the first one I'm going to cover is, my original pattern is called Blueberry. So if you want to learn to read patterns, these videos go hand in hand with those, and I will be adjusting for size because the videos really are just to show you how to make it, not necessarily exactly to the same size, because all my patterns are adaptable. So I'm going to be making them with Knit Pick Stitchy. So I've got one here that's in the wrapper still, but I'll be using up my stash for these ones. And I'll be using a 5mm hook as well. So you can, grab any cotton that will do. This is a worsted weight, which is why the 5mm hook, you can go thicker, you can go thinner, but I would recommend that you stick with a 100% cotton, just because it's a natural fibre, it is more absorptive and better for a washcloth. However, if you want to use this pattern to create something else, then go with whatever yarn suits the purpose. Okay, so for this one, the stitches I'm going to be using US terms, but I will occasionally refer to the UK terms. But the ones you will need to know for this are double crochet, single crochet, and the puff. And I will link to tutorials for those, so I won't necessarily show you how to do the stitches. So if you're not comfortable with the stitches yet, then I do recommend going and learning them and practicing them, though this is a good place to put them all to practice. Okay, so this one, as I mentioned, is from the Popcorn and Puff bundle, and the first one we're going to cover is Blueberry. Alright, so I'm going to get started. So for this one, if you want to adjust it, the original pattern has a chain 39. You can adjust it to any size that you want, but just make sure that your initial chain count is an uneven number, so an odd number. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I'm going to go to 25. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So as I mentioned, this will end up being smaller than the original. So do whatever chain count that you want. This one is, let me see, the chain has ended up being about 17 centimeters. Okay. So yeah, just make sure your chain is in an odd number. Okay, so we're in row 1. So what you're going to notice is that there'll be a chain 2 at the beginning of the round. So you will do a chain 2 and a turn at the end, which means the chain 2 is at the start of the row. I said round, but I meant row. That chain 2 does not count as a stitch, and you'll find that it'll end up with a neater edge when you're making it. Alright, so row 1, we're going to start with 1 double crochet in the 3rd chain from the hook. So I always work into the bumps. You can work into the V if you prefer. So I'm just going to count 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to do a double crochet into that. So if you're used to UK terms, that will be a treble. Then the next thing we're going to do is a puff stitch in the next chain. Okay, so your puff, we're going to yarn over and pull up a loop multiple times. Now this one will feel like a bit of a yarn, it's going to feel like it's using up a lot of yarn. So if you want to use up less, maybe you've got less available, just do less yarn overs. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now because this one's focusing on the puff, I am going to do a lot more. Alright, so we're then going to do a chain 1, and we're going to skip 1, and we're going to do a puff in that next stitch. Okay, so my puffs are going to be pulling up 4 times. Okay, so you can count the loops on your hook if you want. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so you end up with, if you want to keep track, like if you're doing, and then chain 1 again, and then we're going to skip 1, and we're just going to keep repeating that. So we're doing a puff, chain 1, skip 1, and then a puff, chain 1, skip 1. Okay, so there's always going to be a stitch in the middle. Now if you, sorry, I've lost my train of thought there. So that's what I was going to say. So if you want to keep track of how many yarn overs you've done, you will always add 2. So you'll start with 1 loop on your hook. So that's what you're starting with. And every time you do a yarn over and pull up a loop, you add another 2. So you'll have 2 plus 1 for every yarn over. Okay, so if you've yarned over 3 times, you'll have 3 lots of 2 and then add 1, so you'll have 7 loops on your hook. So if you want to keep track and make them all the same size, then you can do that. Okay, so continuing on with this, so we've done a chain 1, so we're going to skip 1, yeah, and then do the puff into the next stitch. Okay, and this one I'm making extra puffy, so it will feel like it's using up a lot of yarn. So you can do 3 yarn overs. That's generally as low as I will go, and I'm trying to save on the amount of yarn that I'm using. But this one, oh, okay, I've got yarn caught up all over the place here, so this isn't going well. Let me just start this stitch again. So if it gets too tight, just start it again. So what you've got to do when you're doing a puff, just to make it more user-friendly, is make sure that that first loop you pull up is the height that you want the stitch to be, because every time that you yarn over and pull up a loop, it kind of gets that little bit shorter, but in the end it all evens out. Okay, so you chain 1, skip 1, going into this, the yarn's all tangled, not ideal. I've lost track, but looks about right. Okay, chain 1, skip 1. It's also part of the problem when you're using scrap yarn, is it doesn't always play as nicely if it hasn't been left nicely wound. So I'm getting extremely tangled here. Okay, so we're going to keep doing that. I'm going to stop so I can fix my yarn, but I won't keep filming. Oh, that got too tight. Okay, so you're going to keep going until you get to the end. And as you can see, puff stitches can be a royal pain in the butt. So this is a good one for practicing on. And part of my problem here is the yarn itself. So I will sort that out because of how it's tangled. So keep going, and you're going to keep repeating this stitches until you've got 1 chain left, and then you're going to do a double crochet into that last chain. Okay, so I'll meet you back for the start of row 2. So you're going to continue doing that, puffs 1, chain 1, so you can see that's what it all looks like now with your double crochet on the end. So you're going to keep doing 1, skip 1, and then the last one you're going to do a double crochet in the end, which is your UK treble, and then you're going to chain 2 and turn. And I'm going to fix my yarn, finish this row, and come back for row 2. Okay, so we've finished row 1. I haven't done the chain 2 and turn yet. I've finished sorting out my yarn. I think I've had 3 ends, so somewhere along the way I think I've cut it and reattached somehow, so it's a mess. But anyway, so row 1. So now we're on to row 2. So I've chained 2 and we've turned, so you can see it's a bit dark, the yarn, but you can see we've got a whole bunch of absolutely glorious puffy stitches. All right, so this first 1. So row 2. So row 2 and row 3 are what we're going to be repeating. And if you haven't bought the patterns or you're not using a pattern, I recommend you write down the notes, because it's much easier to pick up what is what for each row when you've got the written pattern just to refer to. So I'm going to do a double crochet in the first stitch, and then we're going to chain 1. Okay, so we're essentially chaining over the puff stitches, and we're now going to work into the chain 1 space. So this helpful one with this one is we're only working in the chain spaces for the puffs. So we're going to do a puff stitch into that chain space, and then we're going to chain 1. Okay, and then we're just going to keep repeating that. So the next chain space, we're going to do a puff stitch into there. And again, if you don't want to use so much yarn, just do smaller puffs. Or if you're not a fan, even if you're first starting out, might be easier for the puff to just have less yarn overs, because it does make it a little bit harder. This is much easier now. My yarn's not all tangled on itself, and it's giving me nice tension. So your tension will have a lot to do with your puff stitch as well. All right, so chain 1 and in the chain space. So we're chaining over the puff stitches and we're working into the chain spaces. Okay. We're just going to keep doing that down to the end, and then when you get to, hopefully I can show the whole row this time. When we get to the end, we're going to finish with the double crochet 2, 4, 6. This one needs one more. Sorry, off screen there. Oh, I'm starting to feel the tension again. So just working into those chain spaces. This is actually one I've been wanting to make for a while. So the puff stitch, I love the puff stitch. I think it's a very pretty stitch. If you're not a fan of the puff stitch, you could switch it out with a popcorn stitch if you want, so you've still got the texture. The one thing I love about the puff, one thing you'll find different, is that there's no wrong and right side. So this is one that if you want to add texture, this shows up on both sides of the fabric. So we're not going to get a right and a wrong side for this one until we add the border. All right, so you're going to keep doing this until you've got no chain spaces left. So for this row, you'll have a puff and a double crochet left. I need one more. Okay, so now we're going to chain 1. All right, so we're working, so there's no chain space there. We've gone straight into the double crochet. So we're going to do 1 double crochet into that last double crochet. Remember, we've got the chain 2 there that doesn't count. So it looks a bit gappy on the ends, but that's because we've got our chain spaces in row 2, okay? And then we're going to do a chain 2. We're going to turn. Okay, so next will be row 3. Okay, so row 3. So we've got our chain 2. We're going to start, every row starts with a double crochet in the first stitch. So that much you can remember. Then the next thing you're going to think of is when you have when you're on an odd row, so row 3 this is, you're going to work the double crochet, and then like row 1, you're going straight into the chain space. So you're going to do a puff stitch in there. Okay, so that's how we're going to start the row. We're then going to chain 1, and this is the part you're going to repeat. So you're going to chain 1. Oh, my yarn's getting tangled again. We're going to skip the puff, and we're going to work into the chain space. Okay, so, and then chain 1, and then puff. So the difference between row 2 and row 3 is that row 2, or your even rows, are going to have a chain space at the end to work into that. Sorry. Yes, so chain row 3 and row, so that, words. So row 2, you're going to have a chain 1 and then you're going to have a double crochet at the end. So you're going to have that gap on the even rows. So you've got the gap here and you've got the gap here. When it comes to the odd rows, you're not going to have the gap there. But if you've got the written pattern, that just makes it easier to refer to, just to double check where you're at. Because the rest of the rows are the same, pretty much. You've just got the row, this row 3 starts with the chain 1 and then the puff. And row 2 starts with the puff and then the chain, just so that you can try and get it in your memory bank. But you're not going to be thinking that as you're working through. So it's always good just to have that written note down, just to remember what the heck's going on. Because I know even as I'm saying it, I sound confusing. Okay, so all we're remembering through here is we've got a puff and a chain 1, and we're working into the chain spaces. Or we've got a chain 1 and puff for this row. So make sure you go to the puff stitch tutorial, which will show it a lot more slower than what I am showing here. And should have some handy hints for how to manage it. Okay, so row 3, oops. We got chain 1, we should have one more puff left. So we've got that chain space between the double crochet and the puff stitch. So your odd rows are going to have that. Now remember, we started with the chain 1 before the puff, so there's no chain, and we're now just going to do a double crochet into that last double crochet. Okay, you can see we've got lots of lovely, so you can see they kind of slant on a different angle. So we're going to chain 2 and turn. So now you're just going to keep repeating row 2 and row 3. So make sure you've got those notes as to how you start each one, because all the parts in the middle are the same. Now with the original pattern, I went to 22 rows. Keep in mind that this is smaller, so I will do less rows, but I'll just keep going until it is as close to square as possible. All right, so keep doing that, and then I'll come back and I'll show you the border once I get to the border. We're now going to add a border. So the size you've made it is entirely up to the chains that you did at the start. So I have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 rows, and mine has ended up around 15 centimeters in each direction. Now the border we're going to add is quite a simple one, and this is my default border, so you can always add to this if you want something a little different. Now it's up to you if you want to work down the side or across the stitches first. I'm just going to work across the stitches. So we're going to start with, well, we've done that's the end of the row. We're going to do a chain 1 and turn if we're doing it as per the pattern. Now we're going to start on the side, so we're going to do a single crochet in that first stitch, and then we're going to work 1 single crochet into the top of the puff and 2 single crochets into the chain space in between. Okay, so a single crochet into the puff and 2 single crochet into each chain stitch. Does feel like extra stitches, but we're going to just go with it. Where am I? Chain space. If it feels like too much for you, then you can either drop the puff stitch and just do 2 in the chain, or you can just do 1 in the chain and 1 in the puff stitch. 2 in the chain. I'm just trying to remember for myself. Then when we get to the corner, we're going to do 1 single crochet chain 1, 1 single crochet. Oh, it's caught on my finger. So that's what it should be looking like. And you can see there's no right or wrong side with this one either. That's one thing I love about the puff stitch. So I feel like I should be working faster for you, but you can speed it up. We're nearly there. Okay. My chain, there's my puff. Okay, so this one doesn't have the chain on the end. So now I'm going to do a single crochet, chain 1, single crochet in that end stitch. Now we're going to work down the side. So I'll show you the start of this side, and then after that it all becomes pretty much the same. So we're going to work around the chains or around the post, depends on what you've got there at each one. And we're just going to do 2 single crochet for each row. Okay, so you'll have either a double crochet or the chain 2s at the end of the row. And we're not working into the post, we're working around it. So pretend it's a chain space. And for each row we're going to do 2 single crochet around it. All right, so I'm going to let you go with that, and then when you get to the corner, you're going to do exactly the same as you did in this corner. So every corner is going to have a single crochet, chain 1, 1 single crochet in that corner. So I'm going to let you continue, and then I'll meet you back for round 2. So we're going to finish round 1 by just doing a slip stitch to that first single crochet. Okay, so now we're going to do round 2. And this one, very simple. We're simply going to do a single crochet into every stitch that we've made on the sides, and then in the corner, in the chain 1 space on that corner, we're going to do 1 single crochet, chain 1, 1 single crochet. Okay, so these patterns, this is number 1 in the popcorn and puff bundle that I have. So there's 5 washcloths in each bundle that I'm putting together for these, and they've all got a specific thing behind them. So I've got beginner bundle, this one's popcorn and puff, and there are others. There's a front post bundle, so they're all aimed to help you practice something. There's also a basic texture, so there's a few to choose from now. I'm just going to keep bringing out a new one every month. And this is a perfect way to either practice stitches, find out what you do and don't like, and if you want to learn to read patterns, then the videos, I've produced them aligned with the pattern, so you can use that. I am using US terms mostly, but the UK terms are in it, and how you make all the stitches. So they're a great reference and tool to use together. If that's what you want to do, is to learn to read patterns, which if you do that, it just opens up so much more of the crochet world. Okay, so that's the first side. So we're now at that first chain 1 space. So I'm going to do a single crochet, chain 1, single crochet into that first one. And then we've got 1 single crochet in each stitch. Now just be mindful that that one does tend to disappear in the corner space. And then you're just going to continue that all the way around, doing 1 into each stitch. Okay, so I'll meet you back here to finish it off and see the final piece. Okay, so there we go. I've slip stitched to the first single crochet, and I'm just going to fasten off. This is a fun little washcloth full of puffs. So the bundle, I'll put all the bundle notes and everything in the description, so you can head there and find it. And again, if you want to practice reading patterns, then I recommend purchasing the bundle so that you can have them in front of you. I don't write my patterns like most others. I think they're a lot easier to follow because I'm used to writing procedures for people, so I've added that skill to it. And if you love washcloths, love learning crochet, then I recommend you subscribe. And if you want to be part of a community that's investing in themselves and making more time for crochet, then I would also encourage you to join my Hooked on Crochet Club, which you can find all the links in the description, in my profile, all the places. But there you go. There's the first one in our Puff and Popcorn bundle. Enjoy.